China, U.S. face off on climate policies. Differences over who should cut carbon emissions and how. Bali, Indonesia. China said Friday it will not consider mandatory cuts on greenhouse gases, saying the United States and other industrialized countries should take the lead in fighting climate change by embracing a less extravagant lifestyle. China, which some believe has surpassed the United States as the world's top emitter of carbon dioxide and other heat-trapping gases, also questions the fairness of binding cuts when its per capita emissions are about 1/6 of those by the United States. It also noted it's only been pumping pollutants into the atmosphere for the last few decades, whereas the West has done so for much longer. That's a very weak argument. Anyway, China is in the process of industrialization, and there is a need for economic growth to meet the basic needs of the people and fight against poverty, said Su Wei, a member of the country's delegation at the UN Climate Change Conference in Bali. I just wonder whether it's fair to ask developing countries like China to take on binding targets or mandatory targets, Su said. I think there's much room for the United States to think whether it's possible to change its lifestyle and consumption patterns in order to contribute to the protection of the global climate. Delegates from nearly 190 nations are attending the December 3rd to 14th gathering charged with launching negotiations that will lead to an international accord to succeed the 1997 Kyoto-Protocol on global warming. Kyoto, which was rejected by the United States, commits 36 industrialized countries to cut their greenhouse gases an average of 5% below 1990 levels between next year and 2012, when it expires. A lot's supposed to happen in 2012, isn't it? A whole lot. BUSH position. Yes, BUSH is a bad four-letter word. Anyway, one of the factors that led President BUSH to reject Kyoto, supposedly, was the complaint that fast-developing countries such as China, India, and Brazil were not required to cut their emissions under the pact. U.S. Climate Chief Harlan Watson opened the Americans' two briefings this week by outlining how Washington is fighting global warming its own way, whatever that means. With technology, aid, and economic growth, he has denied the U.S. feels isolated and dwells alone. The BUSH administration says imposing mandatory emissions cuts will supposedly harm economic growth. Economic growth has already been harmed, and favors individual countries setting their own goals instead. Washington also backs private sector initiatives to develop energy-saving technology and alternative energy sources, such as ethanol and other biofuels. That won't do it alone. No, government has to take charge. Anyway, still, conference delegates recognize a deal without the United States is meaningless, totally meaningless. The U.S. is the world's largest emitter of greenhouse gases and is home to the globe's largest economy. Robust participation by Washington in a climate accord puts enormous resources at the disposal of the anti-global warming fight. If only they would. Would we, could we, should we? Views on China change. China, for its part, is now being seen as playing a constructive role at the Bali conference after years of dodging the issue and appearing defensive on global warming. I think China is taking climate change seriously, and that's a good sign that there will be, hopefully, a better outcome here. China has expressed support for a post-Kyoto agreement and used the conference to spread the message that it is doing plenty to address climate change, from boosting its use of renewable energy to 10% by 2010 and improving their energy efficiency by 20%. It also has launched a massive tree planting program and has rolled out a national climate change policy. China is acting. We will do what we should and what we can do, Su said, describing his country's climate policy as ambitious. Su said, all we care for is the well-being and the future of mankind. Even hard-to-please environmental groups who relish lambasting industrial countries for pollution are praising Beijing, although it's clear China has much more to do. It relies heavily on dirty, outdated coal-burning techniques and is building a new coal-fired plant about every week, once a week. Has 20 of the world's 30 most polluted cities and some of the most polluted rivers. Nations ranked by emissions. China's ranking on German Watch's 40th Annual Index, which ranks 56 industrialized and emerging countries, was an improvement of 4 places over last year, the group said Friday. The United States and Saudi Arabia were the worst on the list, at 55th and 56th places, respectively. Politicians and activists said China's defensive posture of the past has given way to constructive discussions at the Bali conference. If only the United States could be constructive too. Don't see much getting done by the United States, especially next year. Oh yes, it's an election year. And our president, well, he's not going to do anything about climate change or global warming. Nope, not likely, huh? Very unfortunate. Because the longer you wait, the harder it is to turn it around. Anyway, China has made up its mind about a year ago that it was going to get serious. It wants to show to the world it understands and wants to do what is necessary to stop dangerous climate change, which is accelerating at an ever faster pace. Yes, climate change, global warming is real. Very real. These are more signs of the last days. And there are multitudes of them.